loves the devotees. The month of Kartik thinks that even the slightest devotional service is very big and important. Yeah. So this is really a special time that we're in. Right, and here's another one. Lord Krishna is pleased by the offering of a single lamp during the month of Kartik. Lord Krishna glorifies anyone who lights a lamp for someone else to offer. Anyway, let's see how it goes when we start offering lamps again. Everyone may be lighting the lamps. Yeah, but Krishna really appreciates that service. O Narada, I have personally seen that a person who happily reads Bhagavad Gita during the month of Kartik does not return to the world of birth and death. Yes. So these are just some thoughts. Well, whenever our next program is, we can give a few more. So now, let me look up my Prabhupada pastimes. Where are we? Here we are. Here's an interesting pastime. I mean, some of these you may have heard. I tell these quite regularly. So Srila Prabhupada, while giving class in Berry Place, maybe some of you walked by Berry Place sometime. I know they do take devotees there during festivals sometimes to just see, this was our initial temple. So Prabhupada giving class there, the temple room was sort of, it was narrow, kind of longish and narrow. It was longer than this, but much narrower, I'd say half the width. And Prabhupada's Vyasasan, here I am here, there's the altar. Prabhupada was sitting just on that side of the altar, and Radhalanda and Ishwara were there. And it was like if he really wanted to, he could have just leant over and touched them practically. He was really close. But one time, during a class, Srila Prabhupada stopped and turned and looked at Radhalanda and Ishwara, and he became emotional. And Srila Prabhupada said to the devotees, I have captured Krishna. I'm holding him here for you. Now you please come and take him. Yeah, this was the mood of Prabhupada. Part of the mood. Prabhupada had, very deep transcendental moods. But one of the main ones was how he loved Krishna and how he had an intimate connection with Krishna and how he just really wanted that everyone, but particularly the devotees, they would really get attached to Krishna and become absorbed in Krishna consciousness. So that's what he's saying here. I've captured Krishna, and I'm holding him here for you. Now you please come and take him. One time, one devotee who was present told a story of Srila Prabhupada, his extreme compassion, even upon very unlikely candidates for receiving compassion. Prabhupada, so the devotee who told us some years ago, just maybe shortly before COVID, several years ago, he said that, so they were there somewhere in America, Prabhupada was being massaged, and as he was being massaged, his secretary would read out the mail, the letters which had just come in. So this devotee who told us, he was there, and he heard the secretary read this one letter in which the writer, the devotee, disciple of Prabhupada said, Srila Prabhupada, I have such serious trouble, I have very terrible trouble in Krishna consciousness. From time to time, every now and then, I just become overwhelmed. I used to smoke all the time. And sometimes when things are difficult, I just sort of break down and I start smoking. And I smoke for a couple of weeks, but then somehow I pull myself together again and I stop. And the devotee listening was now thinking, what a nonsense. Smoking, what is this? Then the devotee said, then I stop again, and then for some weeks I carry on, no smoking. But then after just a few weeks, I go through some sort of crisis or some sort of serious difficulty, and I just break down and I smoke again. For a couple of weeks I'm smoking. And now the devotee listening told us that he's sitting there thinking, what a nonsense. What sort of devotee? Is he really a devotee? He's not really a devotee, smoking. And the devotee said, yeah, but then so for a couple of weeks I smoke. And then somehow I pull myself together and I stop. But then another couple of weeks later, something goes wrong and I start smoking again. And the devotee by now, listening, is convinced this is not really a devotee. This is just some, false devotee. And so the secretary finished reading that letter, and Prabhupada sitting there, eyes closed, like meditative, just thinking about it. And the other devotees watching Prabhupada and thinking, what, this person, such a nonsense, smoking. Then Prabhupada said, what a great soul. He's trying his best to be a devotee, even though he's having such terrible difficulty. But he's not giving up. He's continuing to try. What a great devotee. Now, of course, devotees, if some of you are from smoking backgrounds, please don't think that it's okay to follow in his footsteps. But still, Prabhupada's compassion is great, very great. And sometimes came out in ways which we wouldn't expect, that were just sort of coming from a different dimension, from whatever dimension we're in and how we're seeing whatever Prabhupada is talking about. Yeah. Many of you may know these stories. Prabhupada, Tribhuvannath, there was one devotee in England. Unfortunately, he's late. He was really nice. And he had very close relationship with Prabhupada. Tribhuvannath, he joined when he was 17. So he told us that he asked Prabhupada that, what does it mean when a devotee gets sick? and now finds it difficult, struggling. It's kind of painful because of their sickness. So what is it? What is Krishna doing to us when we become sick? And Srila Prabhupada answered that when you become sick, it is like Krishna is giving you a love bite. If you don't know what a love bite is, don't worry. Don't Google it. You don't need to worry about it. But a love bite, of course, hurts. It hurts, but it's an expression of love. So that's what Prabhupada said. He's giving a love bite, and so it hurts, but actually it's to intensify the relationship. So another little story that Srila Prabhupada was in one temple, somewhere in America, who knows where, but somewhere in a temple in America. And so, he was there, gave class, and he was there for the deity greeting. Then he went up to his quarters. But then for some reason he came down kind of mid-morning, 10, 11 o'clock or something along those lines. And the devotees in that temple, they used the temple room as the prasadam room. And the sink, everyone had their metal plate, and the sink for washing the plates was at one end of the temple room. And Prabhupada walked in, and the sink was full of dirty plates from breakfast. Like a few hours, couple of hours or something later after breakfast. And one devotee was chanting his rounds in the temple room. And Prabhupada came down, devotee offered obeisances and then stood up, and Prabhupada said, "Is someone going to wash the dishes?" And the devotee said, "I don't know, Srila Prabhupada." And Prabhupada said, "All right, I will do it." So Prabhupada started washing the dishes. And then the devotee got the message. So he took over washing the dishes. Now here's one, because I'll hand over to Madan Mohan Prabhu in a moment. But this is, very instructive and kind of very, intense. So this one devotee, his name was Nanda Kumar, not from South Africa, but he's an American devotee. And he had just started the day before being Prabhupada's servant, personal servant, the day before. And so now the next day, he's so busy. Shrutikirti Prabhu will talk to us about, what it's like to be Prabhupada's servant. It's intense. So, but anyway, this devotee, Nanda Kumar, he had managed, it's now the evening, he had managed to do 14 rounds, but he still had things to do, so it seemed like he wasn't going to finish his 16 rounds today, but he thought, okay, I'll finish them tomorrow. So he went to Prabhupada, the next morning he went to Prabhupada, the next morning. And lo and behold, what did Prabhupada ask him? Are you chanting your 16 rounds? And so Nanda Kumar said, well, Srila Prabhupada, I've never missed a day of chanting 16 rounds. But yesterday I only managed to do 14. But I will finish the other 2 and my 16 later on today. So, yes. So Prabhupada said, when you are regularly chanting 16 rounds, it is like a young child learning to walk with the help of the mother. Because the mother is holding the child's hand, then when the child starts to fall, the mother holds the child up and they don't actually fall. It is the same with chanting. If you are completing 16 rounds and you start to fall, Krishna will hold you up and not allow that to happen. Then Srila Prabhupada, with his eyes wide open and a very transcendental move of his hand back and forth in front of his face, Prabhupada said, however, if you are not chanting at least 16 rounds every day, your whereabouts are unknown and you will definitely fall down. Hare Krishna. So have we all chanted 16 rounds today? I've chanted 16 rounds. Okay, Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. And now, Madan Mohan Prabhu, please. So what should we do?
Maybe I could just say a few things and then maybe I'll say a few words and then if you think it's proper we could show that on the screen.
We can.
It's a nice video.
You'd have to remind me, what is it?
That's if you can receive an email from me. I sent you the link.
Email.
Email or Telegram, one of the two.
Oh, I see.
Maybe we can do it now if you receive it immediately.
Can do. Yeah. Let's get things up on the screen again.
It's Gmail.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
So let's just get it up on the screen
Yeah.
first.
It's a YouTube video. It's about 3 minutes or something. I can say a few words about it.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's set the scene.
Hare Krishna. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityananda. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Girisha Shishanyavadi Paschanti Vishatayani. Hare Krishna. Do you notice Srila Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj has just given a few examples of Srila Prabhupada's unlimited fathomless compassion. As he said, sometimes manifested towards very unlikely candidates for such compassion. In the Bhagavatam, in the conversation between Vidura and Maitreya, there is a verse which says, Janasya Krishnad Vimukhasya Daivat Adharmashalasya Sudukitasya Anugraha Yehacharantinunam Utani Bhavyani Janardanasya. Vidura tells Maitreya that such great souls like yourself, they are traveling around the world out of their compassion for the fallen souls who have, and the verse literally says, who have turned away from Krishna. Janasya means of people, Krishna Dvimukasya, who turned away from Krishna, turning their backs towards Krishna. Adharma Shalasya, who are therefore, whose lives are therefore full of irreligiosity or impiousness, sinful activities, Sudukitasya, and who therefore suffer in many exquisite ways. Sudukitasya, they're very expert at inflicting sufferings upon themselves. Anugrahayeha Charantinunam, and such great souls like yourself, Anugrahaya, out of your deep compassion for them. Iha in this world, Anugrahayecha Charanti, you travel around the world, Bhutani Bhavyani Janardanasya, out of your deep love for these fallen souls. And before we say a few, narrate a few episodes of Srila Prabhupada's compassion, to continue the topic set by His Holiness Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj, we wanted to show you an animation, a short video. It's a geographical mapping of Srila Prabhupada's compassion. Because sometimes we hear Prabhupada travel the world 11 times. We hardly imagine sometimes exactly how he traveled. So one devotee, actually a few devotees, put together this animation, and we would like to show it to you, showing how Prabhupada traveled the world. And it's very informative. It was very accurately created, following the exact timeline of Prabhupada's travels down to a day.
Okay, here we go.
There should be, I think there should be sound as well. I hope it will be there.
Oops. Sound.
Oh, sound is not coming, but
Anyway.
it was a musical track. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste. So you can see Prabhupada travels between US, Canada, and then he goes back to Europe, Germany, United Kingdom. What does this motion, that orange dot, as you have already gathered, is Srila Prabhupada. Right? So what does it remind you of? The motion, the kind of abrupt but very purposeful motion of the dot. What does it remind you about? You see Kenya, the first visit of Prabhupada to Africa, then Kenya again, India, and then the shades of grey, they actually show the number of visits to a particular place. The darker, the more frequent the places visited by Srila Prabhupada. Mexico, United States. What does it remind you? Huh? Plane, airplane. Well, that's something obvious, right? No, but something also connected to flying. But it's like a bee, right? But it's as opposite as unlike a bee, Srila doesn't travel around gathering pollen, but what does he do? He pollinates the places and the people, and we have already discussed with you, I think yesterday we mentioned about the saffron particles. So that's what Prabhupada does. He pollinates the world with Krishna Prema, right? And in 1971, we already missed 2 years. He visited the former Soviet Union once. And while there, Prabhupada watched the military parade out of the window of his hotel. And he said, he made a prophetic statement. He said, they look so large and so big and so fearsome, but in 20 years it will collapse. And guess what? In 20 years, 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed. 74, now prepare yourself for cheers and yes. 1975 is coming very close. We say Hawaii, Mexico, Venezuela, and then USA, March, United Kingdom, Iran, India, Australia, May, Fiji, like a bee, huh? Isn't it? Because when you see a bee travels sometimes as if without a plan, but the bee does have a plan. Mauritius and Mauritius, Kenya, India. If you have a sort of chat of your yatra, I can post the link, or give it to Siddha Sarup Prabhu, so he could post it with the audio track. So you could also, or if you log on Wikipedia and look up Srila Prabhupada's article, Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada, of course there it's also without the audio track. India, then Prabhupada left this world from 1965 to 77, 12 times around the globe, 25 countries visited, and here you have a table, the frequency of visits. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. kind of was a little bit of lackluster applause. Maybe we should give a not to link to Srila Prabhupada's travels around the world. And yes, back to Srila Prabhupada's stories. Actually, I wanted to share with you not a story but a letter that Srila Prabhupada personally wrote. But before I do that, maybe I will tell one story about Srila Prabhupada. It's a philosophical story which starts with where His Holiness Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj ended. He ended with a story about Nanda Kumar Prabhu. And in London, when Srila Prabhupada was there, Nanda Kumar Prabhu was serving Srila Prabhupada. Another devotee, disciple of Prabhupada, Revati Nandana Prabhu, who was a prominent leader at that time, from what I understand. He was a sannyasi, he was very knowledgeable and charismatic, and from what I heard, he was a great cook as well, Revati Nandana. And once Revati Nandana, he was known for his studious nature, and he knew the Bhagavad Gita quite well. And Nanda Kumar Prabhu told him once, casually, you know what Prabhupada told us today in an informal meeting? He said that when we go back to the spiritual world, we can still come back to the material world, they can fall down. And Devatinandana said, no way. Because Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita many times, Yad Gatvana Nivartante Tadhamma Paramam Mama. Many, like he says, Janma Karma Chami Divyam Yavashti one never comes back. Krishna says quite emphatically, one never comes back to the material world. So, and he does it, he says it repeatedly in the Bhagavad Gita, so maybe you have misheard Prabhupada. He couldn't say that. And Nanda Kumar Prabhu told Revatinanda Prabhu, well, you can go and ask himself. Prabhupada was there and he was relaxing after lunch. Maybe he had just taken a nap. And Revatinanda Prabhu came to Prabhupada's room, he knocked on the door, Prabhupada let him in. And he said, Prabhupada, can I ask you a question? Prabhupada said, yes. I was told by Nanda Kumar that you said in the conversation that when we go back to the spiritual world, we can still fall down. And Prabhupada said, yes. So how is it possible? Because Krishna says one never comes back to the material world when he goes back to the spiritual world. And then Prabhupada, Revatinandana Prabhu explains, actually it's a video of him narrating that incident. You can look it up on YouTube. And he kind of leaned back and thought for a few seconds, and he with kind of very wise and pensive look, as if pondering on how to present this very difficult philosophical point to a resident of this world. And he said, well, when Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita never, he means practically never. That was his answer. Means practically never. Means usually doesn't happen. But then he went on to explain that even when the spirit soul goes back to the spiritual world, he still retains his tatastha, means marginal nature. He can always choose between Krishna and Maya, even though he's very unlikely to exercise that choice wrongly once having gone back to the spiritual world. So that was Srila Prabhupada's answer, which then Revatinandana Prabhu explained, that kind of sealed the whole issue for him, because here Prabhupada was speaking not about a person, a spirit soul, going to the spiritual world from the material world, but someone who is already there, having gone back to Krishna, still being able to make the wrong choice and come back to the material world. So much to the statement that one can never fall down from the spiritual world. So Prabhupada kind of he knew what he was talking about. Like Shrita Kirti Prabhu recently was in his class saying that somebody dared to tell Prabhupada, you don't know what you're doing. And Prabhupada told him very strongly, never tell me that I don't know what I'm doing. So that devotee didn't know what he was doing. Telling Prabhupada that he didn't know what he was doing. Right? So now I wanted to read the letter that will put Prabhupada's these and other statements in the context. Oh, where is that? Where do I have it? I just had it in front of me. Oh, here it is. And this is a letter written by Srila Prabhupada in 1956. It was 56, on 21st of December 1956. He wrote a letter. He took sannyas in 1955, from what I remember. Or no, 57? 56 or 57. Sorry, I forgot the year. Thereabout. So I don't know whether Prabhupada was a sannyasi at the time or not, but it doesn't really matter. He writes to the then President of India, Dr. Rajendra Prasad. So Srila Prabhupada wrote letters to different prominent personalities asking their support for his mission. There is a famous picture of him presenting his Bhagavatam sets, already sannyasi, to the then Prime Minister of India, Dr. Lal Bahadur Shastri, who was a very spiritually inclined person. So here Prabhupada writes a letter to Dr. Rajendra Prasad. It's just a small excerpt from that letter. But when I read it, I thought, wow, we should really know who we are dealing with. Worshipping Srila Prabhupada, following him, reading his books, trying to follow his instructions, meditating on his pastimes. Because his pastimes may look isolated from his personality, may look to be just yet another collection of stories about a great saint, because there are so many stories about so many great saints who were humble and compassionate and humorous and very sacrificial and so many other qualities that great saints of the past manifested. But as Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj very aptly put on his slideshow, this is the history of Srila Prabhupada's visit, the greatest saint of our times, visit to South Africa, right? So look, you can just read, just listen to this letter, and please attentively listen to what Prabhupada says here. He writes to Dr. Rajendra Prasad, "Believe me or not, I have got the clue of going back to Godhead just after leaving my present material body, and in order to take along with me all my contemporary men and women of the world, I have started my paper Back to Godhead as one of the means to the way." So just one sentence, Prabhupada encapsulates his entire mission. He says, I'm going to get back to Godhead. I've got the clue, and he will explain what he means just in a few sentences. But he says, I'm not going to go there alone. I am going along with my contemporary men and women. As a little bit of illustration of what Prabhupada meant by that, he once was giving a class in Melbourne, Australia, and one lady asked a question at the end of his class. She was not initiated, but she knew the devotees well enough, and she knew Prabhupada apparently well enough, because she addressed him, Srila Prabhupada, why didn't Krishna consciousness come earlier to the West if it's so urgent and so important? Why wasn't given to us before? And the way Prabhupada answered again is very significant. He said, because you were not born yet. You were not born yet. And I was waiting for your birth. Now that you are born, we came to take you back to the spiritual world. Join us. So that's how Prabhupada answered the question, why it didn't come earlier. Because you were not born. It was meant for you, just as it was meant for everyone else. So Prabhupada explains later on in the same letter, he says, please do not think of me as a wonderful or a madman when I say that I shall go back to Godhead after leaving my present material body. It is quite possible for everyone and all of us. I have simply adopted the easy method of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, just suitable to the modern people in general. As such, I am feeling as sure of going back to Godhead as I feel without any doubt after taking my dinner that I have eaten to my satisfaction. It's the same obviousness, the same self-evident truth that I'm going back to the spiritual world, and I'm going to take with me all the contemporary men and women of this world. But this feeling is a necessary concomitant factor for the great science of devotional service in the approved line of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Prabhupada had a program for us, he had a plan for us, all of us sitting here. Why didn't he come earlier? You could answer this question for me. Because you were not born yet. So here you are. But Prabhupada, of course, having given his compassion to his disciples and devotees and to us through them profusely, he doesn't want us. The last thing he expects us to do with this compassion is to keep it to ourselves. and he somehow managed to empower all those who were in touch with him to preach with the same, not just conviction, not with the same vigor, but also with the same empowerment. Just like that little girl Saraswati. She was the daughter of Malati Mataji and Shyamasundar Prabhu. And she was about 5 years old when she would just walk out in the streets, and she would grab people by their sleeves because she couldn't reach any higher than that. She was small, and the people would stop and look at her, look down upon her, and she would ask them, "Do you know who is Krishna? Who Krishna is?" And if they would say, "No, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead." "Do you believe it?" And if they would say no, then she would tell them, "Then you're a demon." And she would walk to another person. Or something along those lines. And Srila Prabhupada pointed at her and said, "She's a preacher. That's all it takes to preach." There was a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, I think it was Subhag Maharaj, but I'm not sure. He was very shy and of a Bengali origin. And he couldn't speak English well enough. And then during Mayapur festival, Prabhupada, when he made a point in his class that anyone could preach, he told the disciple, "Please stand up in front of all those hundreds of Westerners, English-speaking audience, stand up and give a class. Anyone, you can preach. Get up, stand up and start. Okay, give a class." Of course, needless to say, he was completely petrified and stunned, and he was so nervous he couldn't say a word. And Srila Prabhupada, understanding his predicament, he said, "Okay, what it takes is to repeat the words of the spiritual. Must repeat after me, Krishna." He went, "Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, and we should serve him with love and devotion," or something like that. And so he started speaking. So, see, it's easy. You've just given a perfect class like that. So Prabhupada empowered his disciples to continue the line, and he believed in their empowerment, so he could safely entrust the mission of his Guru Maharaj, of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in their able hands. There was a story narrated by Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Actually, it's quite interesting about Tamal Krishna Maharaj. His persona also deserves a special discussion by itself, because he was, again, from the very beginning, so dedicated, so intense in his speech, his service to Srila Prabhupada. And sometimes he would attract controversy, but still, he would be very effective and very close. People could feel that he was a trusted confidant of Srila Prabhupada, who Prabhupada could entrust responsible swaths, or the responsible parts of his mission. And once he had a hernia operation. Was it somewhere in Mumbai? I think he was operated on. And Srila Prabhupada didn't want that operation to happen. Somehow he was afraid of its outcome. And he wanted to stop it, but it was too late, and anesthesia was given to Tamal Krishna Maharaj. And when Prabhupada arrived physically at the hospital, he was already recovering from the anesthesia, from the surgery. And when he woke up, came to his external consciousness, Srila Prabhupada was sitting on near his bed, looking upon him. And can you imagine coming out of your anesthesia? But listen to that. What really amazed Tamal Krishna Maharaj was, he said, "Prabhupada, when I was under anesthesia, somehow I saw a dream." Usually people don't see dreams when they are given anesthesia. It's just like a complete oblivion. But somehow he saw a dream. It was a very special dream. And he said, "Prabhupada, in my dream I saw you reporting to all the previous acharyas, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Baladevi Bhushana, all of them were there, Jiva Goswami, the 6 Goswamis, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, and you would give them a report for your preaching." And what you were telling them was, he was telling them that these people of the West, they have no qualifications for spiritual life. They have no culture, they have no spiritual knowledge, they don't have any natural proclivities towards spirituality. They're feisty, they're argumentative, so many other things, but we listed them all. But then said, but there's one good quality. They do all I tell them to do. They listen to me very carefully and follow me strictly. And this is what gives me hope and success in my preaching work. And so he asked Prabhupada, is this true? What I saw in my dream? Prabhupada said, yes. That's true. So that was Prabhupada's compassion. And his compassion was that he entrusted to us the most precious gift that he had received from his spiritual master, which is service to him. As he himself said, that I would listen to my Guru Maharaj's classes, and sometimes I couldn't even understand what he was speaking about, because the language that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used, both English and Bengali, was so exalted, so scholarly and learned, that even native speakers couldn't understand sometimes his high levels of exposition of philosophy and practice. But Prabhupada said, I had only one question after each class and in between: how can I serve you? And that service attitude really is what we need to imbibe from our spiritual master. And Srila Prabhupada did that. He wrote to his Guru Maharaj, I think it was on the 13th of December 1936, he wrote him a letter asking, or maybe it was the letter received or written by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur on the 13th of December 1936, in which he answered the question of Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada asked him, my God brothers, your disciples seem to be so close to you, so fortunate to be serving you personally. What can I do as a grihast, as a householder, as a businessman? What can I do to serve your mission? And then he received a letter written on the 13th of December, and in which Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, I really wanted to preach in the English language, and it will make you perfect, or it will bring you all success, and all those who will help you will also be as successful, as fortunate, or something along those lines.
Good for you.
Good for you and good for them, those who help you, will help you. Right? And this is why Prabhupada, with such conviction and determination, engaged everyone in the service of, apparently in his service, but not in his service. He would never engage people in his own service. He engaged them in the service of his Guru Maharaj. Why? Because Guru Maharaj promised. It's good for me already, but I want that good fortune to be expanded to all those who help me. So that's why he was so confident in engaging everyone in Lord Chaitanya's mission. So that was Prabhupada's compassion. So we shouldn't be carried away by the waves of time that separates us further and further from Prabhupada. We should always remember who Prabhupada was and still is, an eternal associate of Krishna, who Krishna himself empowered and sent to this world. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spoke about Srila Prabhupada. In cryptic words, he said, people flee my Sankirtana movement to distant places, Dura Desha. I think he used the word Dura Desha, Durasthan, something like that, means faraway lands.
Durban.
Yeah, distant forests. Duravan. And they will flee my Sankirtana movement to distant places, and there is no more distant, if you believe, of course, that the earth is round and spherical as a globe. So the most distant place from India is America. And regardless of how you flee, that side, eastward, westward, you'll end up in America. But he said, my Tsinapati Bhakta will chase them, will track them down, and he'll get them. He'll make him devotees. So this is Srila Prabhupada. And this is the compassion he manifested, and all of us can be heirs to this fortune. It's all ours, up for grabs, as they say. All it takes is just like little Saraswati tell people the message of Srila Prabhupada in plain language or sophisticated language. Language doesn't really matter. What matters is the sincerity and the desire to please the spiritual master, just as Prabhupada wanted to please his. Can I conclude here?